Over the years, there's been many arguments as to whether or not cheerleading should be considered a sport. This controversy has affected all levels of cheerleading from high school to college and beyond. I myself participate in cheerleading at Montana Tech and have seen these issues up close. We have been struggling to find our own solution for us as cheerleaders to be considered a sport. Title IX regulations requires all universities receiving federal funds offer equal athletic opportunities to both sexes. A sport must have coaches, practices, and a defined season. It must also have a governing organization, and its primary goal must be to compete, not stand on the sidelines cheering. This being said, it can be really difficult for cheerleading squads that do have coaches and regular practices but do not compete to be considered a sport. Cheerleading is not what it used to be. It's not standing on the sidelines looking pretty in a skirt. It takes a lot more body skill. And cheerleading, just like any other sport, runs the risk of injury, even more so with stunting. Even though this makes it seem like it should be considered a sport, it has been ruled that it's not. U.S. District Judge Stefan Underhill claims that cheerleading is too disorganized and underdeveloped. Because of this, cheerleading coaches are not trained properly and are not given the proper facilities in case of injury. And even though the judges say that cheerleading shouldn't be considered a sport, people say otherwise. On a poll from About.com, 62% of people say that yes, cheerleading should be considered a sport. 35% say no. 2% say that it depends, and 1% say they just don't care. So if the people say that it should be considered a sport, why don't the judges listen to them? Why don't the judges get out there and try it themselves and see what it takes to be a cheerleader? How did you get involved with cheerleading?
Well, with my job, I work for the athletic director, and each year we had a cheerleading coach come, and the one girl came, she was the coach, then the following year she quit right when the season began, and it was middle of football, and we didn't have cheer squad or cheerleaders, and we needed somebody, so I decided to do it.
So why did you decide to do it besides
Because
that?
I knew I was going to be working here and they needed some stability, so I knew with that I can get that for them. I'm going on my third season, and that's the longest we've had a coach stay here. Yes, I do think it should be a sport, both of them, competitive and sideline. We practice just as hard, we work just as hard, and with it being a sport, that way you can get scholarships and the girls can move on better.
Do you have any plans for your cheerleading squad, such as competitions or anything for them to be considered a sport?
In the future, we do want to get them to be a sport and to go to competition. I would like to make it that it is steady and the girls do get somewhat fee waivers, scholarships, and make it more active with Montana Tech.
Let's go Tech. Let's go. Let's go Tech. Let's go. Let's go.
One thing that misleads people about cheerleading is the title itself. When people say cheerleading, they think pretty girls standing on the sidelines, and that's how it may have began. But now, cheerleading has both men and women participating, and it takes a lot more body work and flexibility than it used to.
Girl, please excuse me if I'm going too strong. But tonight is the night we can really let it go. My girlfriend's out of town and I'm all alone. Your boyfriend's on vacation and he doesn't have to know no.
Cheerleading should be considered a sport because it can be very dangerous. With the stunting, it's easy for girls to fall and get injured. It's also easy to roll an ankle and injure other parts while you're out dancing. I think it does affect, the lack of funding does affect our squad here at Tech, because if we were funded, we would be able to go to camps. We would be able to buy more equipment and mats to help with the safety of stunting. We'd also be able to have better coaching staff, because due to lack of money, we don't have the best coaching staff we could have. Let's go. G-O, go, go, here we go. Let's go. G-O, go, go, here we go. Let's go. G-O, go, go, here we go. Let's go. Last one. G-O, go, go, here we go. Let's go.
There's no reason cheerleading can't be a sport. Obviously, there would have to be issues that would be addressed in terms of growth, judgment, competition, certification, all those things. But all sports started in that fashion. There's no reason that cheerleading can't be a sport with the amount of time and effort and athleticism that these men and women display.
I think cheerleading is a sport and not a sport in two different ways. When they're doing all the tumbling and all the competitions and all the big stunts, I think that's more of a sport, just like gymnastics is a sport. But when they're just standing there and cheering at football games, I don't think that's necessarily a sport. That's more of just a dance routine or something like that. That's how it's split in my mind.
I don't think cheerleading should be considered a sport because, they stand on the sidelines of major games and they do their dance routines, they do their stunting. But when they're doing their stunting, I'm thinking in my mind, well, ladies, why don't you move aside so I can watch the game? And as far as competitive cheerleading, I think that is a sport because they train their asses off for that kind of stuff and they're actually competing.
Okay, so I believe cheerleading is a sport because remembering all the moves and executing all the moves is just as demanding as a player in a sport remembering plays and executing those plays properly and everything.
I think cheerleading is a sport only if there is competition involved. Otherwise, I see it as myth.
I think cheerleading is a physical activity because it requires physical strength, endurance, flexibility,